let's go to the questions. This from Jeff. Lee Dixon called it a C+ rating for Lee Carsley with regards to England's performances in this international break. What would you call it, Jim Campbell?
I love that he's gone for C+.
Yeah.
He sounded disinterested in the question.
He did, but also the point he made was that he's just sort of done what you'd expect. So it's hard to sort of make any sort of judgment on this because of the opposition. But it's very Lee Dixon, that sort of attitude, isn't it? Imagine at the birth of his children, imagine that the medical staff would say things like, you must be absolutely delighted. He'd be like, well, they've not really done anything yet, have they?
No.
So,
yeah,
It's what I expected,
I don't really,
it's D minor.
Yeah.
I was expecting a baby and I've received one.
Yeah, so, I mean, over to them, I suppose.
But he did call it a C+, and he did make a point which made it completely clear then that given the current terms of Lee Carsley's appointment, he's not going to be able to impress anyone at all because he's only actually going to be in charge for 6 Nations League games, all of whom are against Finland, Ireland or Greece.
Yeah.
So unless he massively fucks up and loses one of them or doesn't achieve promotion or whatever, it's not possible, according to Lee Dixon, for him to get a higher rating than that. I suppose maybe the counterpoint to that is that he could win every other game 7-0 and look amazing. I would say he's done well. I think, as I said on yesterday's show, that there's 2 elements to this job. One of them he looks completely unequipped for at this point. So park that to one side. In terms of the on-the-pitch stuff, the coaching, the picking the team, the getting the results.
Which is the bigger part of the job.
Yes, he has done better than C+, because I think it's difficult shoes to fill. They've looked better in terms of tempo and balance and shape against not an awful lot of opposition, admittedly, but they still have. And I think I would probably call it a B. The only thing that would make it an A for me, or an A+, would be if they just blew people away. And it was like they were knocking it about amazingly, and they scored loads of goals. Now, the Finland game on Tuesday night could have been loads of goals. It was just, unfortunately, the finishing wasn't quite there. But that's part of it. So you can only call what you see. So I would probably call it a B. I thought Dixon was characteristically harsh. But on the other hand, you've got to bear in mind that he simply is not interested in this job.
But he's very close to a B because it's a C+.
Exactly.
I love that he's put the plus in there. A strange little bit of positivity in an otherwise quite negative assessment. I would sort of veer towards a B as well.
Would you say B-, Jim?
Well, it's a suspended B because obviously it depends what happens in the other 4 games, really.
No, it was specifically this international break.
Okay, fine. So I'd go for a B as well. I really liked how he used the squad, actually. He kind of...
Squad.
It felt like he was sort of planning for getting the job full time, really, by seeing what his options are, trying a few different things out, and testing players that might have a long career in an England shirt, and being quite bold with the selections of Angel Gomez to start at Wembley in particular. Levi Colwill did very well at left back against Ireland, and then he gave Rico Lewis the shout. Colwill came on as a centre back, which is good as well. Conser coming in for Gay as well was, I thought, a really, really nice and quite bold expression of how much confidence he has in his squad and in his tactics and how they can interpret that. So I thought he sort of looks the part in terms of the confidence of international football in general, and how you approach a potentially long campaign and a short window in which you get to look at players. But the strength of the opposition just means Lee Dixon has a point to a point. I would just rate it higher than he has.
I'm going A-.
A minor.
Yeah.
A minor.
Putting a musical bent on it.
Yeah.
Give us an A- then.
Well,
I'd love someone who actually knows about this to work out what that was. That'd be great.
I had to go.
You did?
And football and A and
I thought you were doing Lee Carsley there.
Are all about opinions. I think that he's had a really good break. Sorry, get the terminology right for a start.
It's not a break for them, though, is it? Hard work.
It is hard work. Because he's already shown that he's a different manager / coach, whatever word you want to use, to Gareth Southgate. He's got people excited somewhat, and he's got 2 decent performances and wins under his belt. And people are talking about this already. And also, with regards to the sort of national anthem thing, he doesn't sing the national anthem. He had to manage that.
Yeah.
And actually, by the second game, I think it had pretty much gone away.
Yeah. They tested defences for weaknesses, certain parts of the media, and they moved on.
And I think that's it. And I think that's a part of his shtick of I'm really not interested in this. And you can't really goad me into saying anything. Who knows further down the line? But I think he's had a really good window. Break. And to the point of, I think right now, and we're going to come on to this in just a moment or two, anyone else being given the England job seems a bit like, whoa, hang on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm rating on. He's interim manager. How's his audition going? pretty bloody well.
Good.
Yeah, he's not treating it like it's a caretaker gig, is he? He's treating it like there's a serious plan
and he should
for
never,
the long term.
and he shouldn't have either.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, next question from Xander, who says, after Harry Kane made his 100th appearance for England, how would you rate him amongst England's all-time top players? Because Wayne Rooney said he was the best, did he not, recently in one of his interviews?
I think he did, yeah.
So high praise from old Wazza. But Luke?
Well, I've actually got it in my contract. I can't disagree with Wayne Rooney, so you'd have to bypass me there.
But you can... and you can't agree with Charlie Kane either, so you're going to have to really be creative with your answer.
It's a very difficult bit of territory I occupy.
We didn't think this would come up.
Every day's a challenge. Luckily, Charlie Kane doesn't say much. So basically, what do I think? I think that really, and these shadows obviously loom large over everything we do when it comes to talking about England, that the team who won the World Cup in 1966 need to be front and centre of any conversation like this. And I think just by virtue of the fact that, certain players have won the World Cup, and it is difficult to compare generations, and it's before I was born, so I didn't see it and don't really have any context. I think, for me, maybe you would say probably Bobby Charlton, because he played so often and scored so many goals and won the World Cup and was obviously such a standout player.
And also scored,
a huge amount of goals.
For not an out-and-out striker,
exactly.
In midfield.
Incredible effort from the lad.
Yes, indeed.
But comparing across different generations is tough. And what I try and do when we get asked these questions, I try and talk about players I've actually seen. And I think in terms of the numbers itself, the numbers themselves, and the fact that he's picked up, World Cup top scorer, Golden Boots. He's admittedly shared, but he's a European Championship top scorer as well. I don't think any other England player's done both of those.
No.
So if you're talking about strikers,
Gary Lineker obviously World Cup, Alan Shearer at Euros, but
but not the same.
He's in good company,
and he scored more goals than anyone else. I think you've got to say he's part of the conversation for sure. In terms of my favourite players or the players I think have had the most impact or whatever, I think it's really difficult to answer that. My favourite England player probably is Paul Gascoigne, probably. But that's not the question. The question is he the best player ever? I don't think he's the best England player ever because he hasn't won anything. And that's really important to me when it comes to judging these things. But I would definitely have him certainly top 5 and maybe top 3, I would say.
Yeah, I think the whole not winning thing it's an understandable point, so I don't think it's ridiculous to put it in there. But I think when you think about some other greats, like Paolo Maldini in terms of the Italian side and so on, then I'm not. It's not the weightiest bit of evidence for me.
But you're not going to put Paolo Maldini as the greatest ever Italy player, presumably, because you're going to put someone like Cannavaro or Nesta or one of the team who won it in 2006 in there. That would be my argument.
Well, perhaps, but yeah, I mean, keeping it with England though, I think because England...
All the other World Cup wins, of course, whatever.
Yeah, I think he is amongst the greatest. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anyone would say. He's... in time, he might be seen as possibly the greatest English player or greatest England player of all time.
Player, not just striker.
Well, only because with the caps and the goals, he's got both, really. I mean, obviously Charlton's in there. But just as generations move on, will people really sort of remember Sir Bobby Charlton? I mean, we sincerely... And that obviously depends on whether England win a bloody trophy or not, I suppose.
Yeah, sure.
If he wins a trophy, and he's been very close on 2 occasions, then I think that would probably...
And also, Kane's career's not over yet.
No, of course not, no. But, I mean, he is 31, so he's not getting any younger. And he's targeting 100 goals for England, which would be quite something.
He's making a lot of noise about wanting to play like well into his 30s as well, citing Ronaldo in particular as an example, and of how that is possible with sort of modern sort of sports science. So it could be that we see him sort of really hit a sort of like impossible number when someone else is trying to come along and take a pop at that. I think the way I look at this is that if I were putting together an all-time, like an England 11 of all-time players, he'd be in it. You'd have to put him in it.
And he'd be above Lineker, Shearer, Owen.
Absolutely. But because of
Greaves,
it's the longevity as well. I think maybe you make an argument that like on their best day, maybe you might say, I'd slightly prefer Shearer or whatnot. But in the realm of things that have actually happened, Kane has been there and he's been consistent and he's delivered. Even in this Euros, people were slating him, saying he wasn't fit enough. And clearly he wasn't fit enough. He was not at his best. He still scored 3 goals. He just makes it happen. He's so dependable and so reliable. I think you'd absolutely have to have him in there. So I think
for England, Jim, sorry to cut in, but I think for England, the Shearer versus Kane debate, if you're talking about players overall, I think there's definitely periods of Shearer's career where you'd say that he's delivered more than Kane's delivered. But I think in terms of England career, I mean, Kane's got more goals than Shearer's had caps.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not really comparable.
No.
I think Shearer brings a lot to the table, and in terms of as a player at his club level, he was fucking amazing. On his day, he was unplayably good. But then so's Kane.
Yeah, I think maybe you have to factor in as well that I think England play more internationals now than they would have done at the time that a lot of players.
Well, he's the fastest guy to get to
been
100 caps.
Well, yeah, which
probably
sort
for a good reason.
Sort of tells a story slightly. But yeah, I think you got to have him top 5.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we settled on that, haven't we?
Indeed. Right, next question
Right.
from Ben, who says, does the news that Eddie Howe is potentially unhappy at Newcastle change the conversation about who the next permanent England manager will be? And it's been reported that Eddie Howe is unhappy at Newcastle after the club's activity in the summer transfer window. Obviously, they failed to get their number one target, Mark Gay. They're going to go after him in January, according to reports. They also sold academy prospects Elliot Anderson and Yankuba Minte. It led to tensions, of course, with Howe and sporting director Paul Mitchell. So an unhappy Howe.
Yeah, I don't think it does change the conversation because if you are a good English manager in a situation like this, you are going to be constantly linked to it anyway.
But the idea, surely, Jim, is that it is much more. If the FA decided they wanted to get Howe, they're far more likely to be able to get him if he's not happy in his current job.
I think that they would. I don't think they would shy away from trying to uproot someone who's happy in a job, to be honest. I think if they really, really want Howe, him being unhappy at Newcastle or happy at Newcastle is only going to be so much of an obstacle.
Well, I suppose the spirit of the question is really, do you think the FA...
Are they going to go for it?
Would they go for Howe? And what would you think of that? Because I said only minutes earlier that the reason why I gave Carsley an A minor... the minor is just to
give us a note again.
Just to
octave lower this time.
Just to temper expectation is because the idea now somebody taking the job off Carsley is, I don't think it's a good one, and I think it would take a bit of a disaster or something, he's misspoken, I don't think Carsley's that type of character, a pint of wine in wings and what goes with that, or suddenly they play terribly on the pitch and he can't figure out, how to keep them, and then there's unrest and there's unhappy. I don't think that's going to happen. So now I think the conversation about any other English manager is mute.
It's moot.
It would be a surprise, I think, if the FA were to go after someone else, unless they've been given a big excuse to do so.
Yeah.
And that's probably the underlying point of the answer to this question.
Mm-hmm. If he was sacked, Eddie Howe, then obviously I think people would start saying, "Oh, hang on a minute here. You've got perhaps the
Potter's available, and he's arguably achieved as much as Howe, isn't he?
But Howe is operating at the highest level. I mean, he's operated in the Champions League, whereas Potter hasn't.
Yeah.
I understand
Does that matter though?
For some people,
England,
in terms of CV, in terms of England, probably not. I mean, again, at the moment, we're happy with Carsley.
Yeah. I mean, he's won a tournament with an England team, which I don't think, we mentioned this on Monday, but I don't think Howe and Potter actually have enough in their CV to necessarily significantly outweigh that experience. So, as you say, he's got 4 more auditions essentially, but they're all very winnable games. The expectation is to win every game well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is difficult.
I think that this is far more significant for Newcastle than it is for England.
Yes,
and by a long way. Mm-hmm. And I also don't actually know how significant it is for Newcastle, because the briefing that's coming out and the chat that a lot of kind of journalists based up there are talking about is that this isn't that much of a big deal. There's talk of Paul Mitchell leaving. Newcastle are now saying there's no way he's going to leave. He's only just come. They're kind of framing it as kind of growing pains, a bit of friction because someone new sporting director in the job type thing. And I also think that the Mark Gay targeting thing, I might be wrong on this, might even predate Paul Mitchell. I think he inherited it and tried to deliver and couldn't. And that's more about the kind of ill-advised nature of the timing of trying to get Gahey when Palace had sold other players already and they didn't want to lose him type thing more than anything else. So I think, part of me feels like I said, I don't know, part of me feels like it's quite an easy story to talk about as a journalist. Eddie Howe's so disappointed because of this. Well, I'm sure he was disappointed, but I'm also equally sure that he'll probably just get on with it. Mm-hmm. So I don't actually think there's much in this anyway, and there's far less in it for England than there is for Newcastle. That'd be my take.
Fair enough. All right, everybody, coming up in the second half, there is more drama at Chelsea Football Club, and we ask which Rambler you would like to share a ball bag with. See you in a moment.
And what's going on here? Somebody's breaking into my house, and that made me angry.
Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Right, on Tuesday, Luke hypothesised that Ronald Koeman must have resolved Wout Weghorst and Jurien Timber's fallout by telling them they need to learn to live in his ball sack together.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what came over me there. When you read it out back to me like that, it makes me sound completely mad.
Yeah, but that's.
I just thought that Koeman's the kind of guy, as we all agree, get his cock and balls out a lot.
But you're basing that on Louis van Gaal and the Dutch nation.
Yeah, tuck Weghorst and Timber in there in the old tobacco pouch. And see if they can fight it out or learn to live together.
Figure things out between themselves.
Yeah. So on the WhatsApp channel, we did a poll which said, which Rambler would you guys rather share Ronald Koeman's ball bag with? So you're in a presumably quite a big, testicular sack.
Working very hard. Think about the testosterone that goes around that man's body.
Yeah. Exactly. And the spunk. And you are in there with...
A lot of protein in there. Probably quite good for an athlete.
Yeah. You're in there with... one of the Ramble presenters. So you're I don't think there's many other football podcasts will be doing this kind of line of conversation, but just bear with us.
Yeah.
You're neighbours, aren't you? You're not sharing an individual sack. I think it's important.
No, you are.
No, you're in the sack. You're not sharing a ball. You're each a ball in the sack.
Whoa.
You know how ball bag works.
No, but one's in one testicle, one's in the other.
Yeah, but in the same sack.
Oh, in the same sack. I see.
You are a testicle.
Right.
That's how I interpret it.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
And the other person is a testicle.
Yeah.
And you've got to...
this is as animated as it gets.
Cohabitate.
Anyway, so we asked people who they would like to share Ronald Koeman's nutsack with.
Yeah.
And they had the option, of course, of Marcus, Luke, that's me, Jim, Pete, Andy and Vish. Who do you think won with 93 votes?
Obviously, Pete did.
It's an absolute landslide.
See, the thing is...
That's mad that he won that.
No, absolute cockslide.
No, it's because they don't know him. They think they want this.
He's also small.
They absolutely don't.
He is small.
The problem is, though, he'll be really comfortable with this. Any of us in that situation would be freaking out quite a lot. As the listener would be, Pete would get very comfortable very quickly, and he would like figure out how to manipulate the ball bag, play pranks on you with elements of the ball bag.
He'd get control
really
of
quickly.
Get control of the willy as
He
well.
would get control of the
He
willy.
probably managed to get out of there as well.
He'd start to break down when he realised he couldn't get a delivery order delivered to the nuts. Anyway, Pete won.
He'd find a way.
Marcus, I mean, you can interpret this as much as you guys can interpret.
So what are the percentage?
It's just on vote number.
Okay.
So Pete got 93 votes. A lot of people have abstained from this.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Pete got 93. You came, I mean, take this as a compliment or not. Marcus, you got second place with 43 votes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Third place was me with 23 votes. Then Vish with 20. Then you, Jim, with 15. And Andy received just 8 votes, which I think is probably the biggest compliment he's been paid since he's been on this show.
I was going to say, should we? Yeah. Am I happy about that or not? I don't know.
I think he'd be a calming presence in that situation.
So look, it's the hard hitting questions we want answers to, and we thank our listeners for doing so. And I should say, of course, if you want to be involved in any future polls, I'm reliably informed you can join the Ramble WhatsApp channel by hitting the link in the show description. So that must be where I did it before. And you can do that as well. And there's all sorts of extra content on there that you'll enjoy.
It's not all genitalia chat on there. Not all.
Probably 90%.
Yeah, you see.
But whose genitalia, Chris Kamara?
A ball bag.
I must have missed that, yeah. Anyway.
Well, of course, Koeman's Netherlands drew 2-2 with Germany on Tuesday night.
They did.
So it was a fairly entertaining game. Now, obviously, he spoke about Steven Bergwijn, sodding off to Saudi.
The derby of Europe.
Yeah, well, he doesn't seem to have a problem with Memphis Depay moving to Corinthians in Brazil.
Corinthians.
Yeah.
Corinthians.
Yeah. Penalty.
Yeah. Someone said to me that listening to Portuguese is like listening to a Russian trying to speak Spanish.
No, that's more Portuguese.
Okay,
Brazilian Portuguese is like drunk Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
L's become W's at the end of words. Like Brazil.
Yeah.
It's
Brazil. Yeah, there's a bit of that. Right. Anyway, hello, Brazil. So Koeman said, I disapproved of Bergwijn to Saudi. With Memphis, it can be different.
Yeah.
I love the idea that he's got a list of countries. Right, here's where you can go, and here's where you can't go.
Yeah.
So,
do you reckon? So is he arguing there that Brazilian club football is a much more higher standard than Saudi football?
It seems that way. Because it is.
I don't watch either. So
we hear a lot about the sort of crises of the quality of the Brazilian league.
Well, because the players always leave.
Because the players always leave. But
better than Saudi.
You would assume so, but you would certainly assume that Ronald Koeman would be in a position to have a genuinely informed opinion on that.
Or just double down on the point you made earlier.
Yeah, or just be really Dutch about it.
Yeah. Get in that nutsack.
I'd love to know if there's some way of getting a running tally of every personal feud that every member of the Dutch squad, staff included, is in at any one time.
It'd be like
thousands of them.
Properly Shakespearean. It'd be so in depth. It would be like trying to follow the appendices in the back of the Game of Thrones book.
Well, I'll take your word for that.
Yeah.
But nice to know that Depay's gone to Corinthians. Andy Brassell's all over that, surely.
He must be.
He
He
must be. I swear I saw him at the unveiling when.
And he doesn't really go in for South American football, does he? He can't just.
He goes in for Memphis Depay.
Yeah, he does, big time.
Maybe the sort of open new shores to him.
I'd love to know. I don't think there's a coefficient thing that exists around the leagues across different federations, because I know you can obviously have the UEFA coefficient, but obviously Saudi Arabia and Brazil, neither of which are in UEFA, so it'd be difficult to know. But I'd love if someone could link us to a rough rating of all the different leagues around the world. That'd be amazing.
Or maybe Saudi could create one and sponsor it.
Yeah, they probably could actually. Yeah,
I'm quite surprised though, that considering Depay was up for grabs, so to say, he didn't end up at Chelsea, because that would be very.
Maybe he's been just put off England forever.
That's true. And I suppose he's not a goalkeeper as well. Let's go to Chelsea, though. It has been reported there's an ongoing rift in the Chelsea boardroom.
There's just too many keepers. There's goalkeepers everywhere. It's massive blokes with big gloves on, just getting in the way of all the decisions.
And it's messing up the system.
Yeah.
So Chelsea obviously currently co-owned by Todd Bowley. He's leading the consortium, and Clear Lake Capital, which was co-founded by Begdad Igbali. Now, both parties want to take full control of the club and buy the other party out. Now, we should say that Bowley is the chairman of Chelsea Football Club, so he does get a veto on all his on all decisions, despite being the smaller shareholder. And all the signings that went through, he was obviously gave the green light on that.
Yeah, he's never used the veto apparently.
Yeah, and so he owns 38.5% of Chelsea, and Clearlake are the majority shareholder with 61.5%. So the relationship between Bowley and Igbali is said to have deteriorated to the point they can no longer work together. However, neither can make any major decisions without the approval of the other party. As we've said,
it sounds amazing,
but doesn't seem to be a huge concern when it comes to transfers, of course.
It basically sounds like when just before Fleetwood Mac broke up.
Okay, I thought you were going to say Ken
I think
Bates.
Oh,
they're all shagging.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's starting to get a bit messy, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's interesting to me because I've just heard for months now from Chelsea fans that everything is absolutely brilliant. So it was a surprise to me to see this news.
Because this is a different gear change for Chelsea, because under...
Well, it's just further more incoherence, isn't it?
Yeah, but under Abramovich, when we would look at Chelsea, they sacked another manager and they've got this person in, but it works.
Yeah,
in terms of trophies, it works.
And in terms of chaos, that is really all it was. At the boardroom level, it was always very joined
up. But they had one decision maker, really.
Exactly, because the big difference is, if you look at the numbers of Abramovich's reign, and put to one side all the kind of unsavoury stuff, just for the purpose of this argument, it cost him across 19 years £900,000 a week for 19 years. And he had the money to be able to deal with that. The reason this situation has come to pass is because Todd Bowley doesn't have the money to continually invest in that way. So he has the money probably to own them, but he doesn't have the money to invest continually, which is why he's had to bring Clearlake in. But Clearlake Capital are an investment fund, right? So they need to have a return on their stuff. They probably do want to be in control of the things they're doing and the decisions they're making, because otherwise, as we've seen, football clubs can be a gigantic money pit. And so it is a really kind of difficult marriage, and it's hard to see how it comes out the other side, because as you've already said, each one will accept a situation which involves them buying the other one out. But each person wants that. So it's an impasse, it's a total impasse. And the real issue is, do we expect it to affect the stuff on the pitch? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?
We'll see, won't we?
Yeah, but the key thing is, I think, to bear in mind, is the reason this is a major problem, in my view, and other people have said it, is because if you want to compete at the very top level of European football, which of course they do, you need to have joined up commercial strategy. You need a much bigger stadium, being able to generate much more money and much more facilities than Chelsea have currently got. And really, no progress has been made on that so far.
I mean, there's talk, isn't there, of, I think, around Earl's Court.
Well, they released this. Here's the thing, right?
I'm sorry, by the way, that's just me duty bound to mention that.
I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on that, because I think it's really important. I don't know that much about running a football club, but I don't know how the media works. They've seeded that story out to try and take oxygen away from this story. So what they've said is, what can we do to divert the bad public relations away from this bust up? Oh, actually, we've got plans to do it. Do you know why I know this? Because when Portsmouth were owned by Milan Mandaric, he used to do it about every 6 months. Some shit would go wrong, or there'd be some controversy, or he'd ban another journalist, And overall, manager did a lot of good things for Portsmouth. I want to make that clear. But he would also go, do you know what we've done? We've gone up to London, spoken to an architecture firm, and they've designed us a fucking stadium in the middle of the harbour. Look how good it is.
It's going to be floating.
Whatever you do, don't look over there. Look over here. It's like that. That's what they've done.
So they're not going to build on the cemetery around Earl's Court then?
Apparently not.
No, okay.
Well,
there's been, as far as I know, sorry Jim, I will hand over to you, but there's been absolutely no progress made whatsoever on a stadium, as far as I know, at Chelsea, and there cannot be one until this stuff's sorted out.
The current story, according to what they themselves have put out, is that the two co-owners simply cannot work together and are building a stadium.
So
it's like a Gaudi.
I was about to say, it's going to be great. Yeah. It's going to be great, and that's it. It's a race to the clouds.
Well, yeah,
it really is.
Crossed with when my son
it's
tries
to be like the Tower of Babel, the Babel Stadium or some bollocks.
Combined with when my son tries to put two parts of a separate truck together.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's
what it's going to look like.
That would be it. Give one half of the stadium to Clear Lake and the other to Bowley. See what they do.
Chelsea get a little stick for this. Look, I'm not trying to have a go at the fans and stuff, who obviously just deserve to have a club to support.
I think those who own the club have a go.
You're just in the wind as a fan, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. You have no say in it, which is
they played their part in the Super League, but ultimately
it's his own problem, isn't
it?
But yeah, they did.
Look, I just wanted to be fair.
But fans have no say in who owns their club.
They don't.
It's very, very, very difficult to get any say at all whatsoever. So look, it's not good news. It's starting to look very, very incoherent at best. This has to be sorted out. It's going to involve probably someone, putting their gun down. And I don't know whether people of this level of wealth and success are used to doing that. So we have to just watch what happens with interest.
Yeah. There is also a theory that, and this was in a very interesting piece in The Athletic, with some insight into this, that Todd Bowley, a lot of the stuff that's coming out is kind of power plays, because Bowley would essentially, because his personal money is invested in the club in a way that Clear Lakes isn't. Well, he's perhaps esserly engineering this to drive the price up. But what makes me kind of wonder about that a little bit is that very, very wealthy people, their reputation is really important to them, right? And football's really unforgiving on this. Now, Todd Bowley hasn't actually been in charge of recruitment since, I think it's January 2023. So all the money they spent on Mudryk and Enzo Fernandez, that happened just after he stopped having control over that. So, perhaps he is still getting flack for things he hasn't done. But football, as I say, is really unforgiving of reputation. So whoever kind of sells up now just looks like an absolute clown. Be that Bedek Bali or Todd Bowley, they look like the idiot who presided over this farcical period.
But let me just make the point.
Newsfilm moves fast, though.
Yeah, but let me just make the point. For Clear Lake to sell up, Bowley would need to find someone else to work with him. Yeah. He can't afford to do it otherwise.
Yeah, and that's it. You're quite literally playing the percentages, and I think you're right. Bowley drives up the price, and if I understand your point about billionaires and
it's totally fair.
But my prediction would be Bowley eventually sells to them and off he goes, because surely if you're used to working in the conditions he's used to working with, and I don't know about all that, but I would probably suggest it maybe runs a touch smoother. The madness of the Premier League ownerships, and in particular Chelsea, is like, why would you need that?
Yeah, I would also add though that the issue is. Not that's part of the story, and Jim's absolutely right, but I would say that's not what the story ends, though, chiefly because Bowley's role in this is the fact that he's owned and run sports teams before. Clear Lake have never done that. Yeah. So Bowley also owns, is it the LA?
So that's what I mean. That's what I was alluding
LA
to there.
baseball team, and he owns Strasbourg as well.
Yeah, well,
okay. Clear Lake would have to bring a kind of football literate person in. Otherwise, you basically get a situation like... was it the Athletic article that talked about Hicks and Gillette and all that kind of stuff as well? So because it's a similar situation to Hicks and Gillette. One of them has got its history of sport, but doesn't have enough money. The other one comes in, it becomes a big power struggle. The whole thing goes to shit, and they end up selling to Fenway. Like but the point I'm making is that both of them had to get out.
Yeah, okay.
So it might transpire in a slightly different way. Anyway, sympathy as ever is with the fans of the club, because they always get on the fucking raw end of the bargain. But it's got to be sorted out, because it's going to be as incoherent as it gets, and they're just going to be left behind.
It's very, very rare, isn't it, that sort of strife at boardroom level translates to success on the pitch.
Indeed, it does. One man who did get out of there, though, was Maurizio Pochettino. And
yes, he was asked to get out.
Mutual.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm already on my way.
Yeah.
From this shit show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Put your stuff in it.
I know I've not won anything again, but I'm on my way out anyway.
Again. Yeah. Well, he has officially been confirmed as the US men's national team head coach, which, let's be honest, is a lovely old job,
It's
especially
fantastic.
as they're hosting the World Cup with Canada and Mexico. And Pochettino said, the decision to join US soccer wasn't just about football for me. It's about the beaches. No, it's about the journey that this team and this country are on. The country as well.
Yeah.
Don't say stuff like that. It's about to be an election, you fool.
Yeah, but for them, from a sporting point of view, the journey is towards the World Cup, right? And that's interesting. And then when we talked about this in the middle of August, we talked about how the idea of this was received quite well by American football fans. There's a feeling that a lot of the players are in a position where they're more famous as soccer players than they've ever really been. And there's an element that I think a lot of fans feel of the US men's national team that they're quite complacent and a little bit arrogant, and they think they're better than they are, hence the results. And Pochettino can come in there and actually be a genuinely quite big fish and be like, look, calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
I've managed in Europe for ages. I've played in World Cups, blah, blah, blah.
It's a big name to come in to do that.
I think as I said this last month, I think it's very, very difficult, possibly not even possible, to argue that there's another manager of a bigger profile they could have got.
No, I agree with you. They went for Jurgen Klopp, which was never going to happen because he's enjoying his time off.
I don't think a bigger manager would go to any nation in general.
No, I think
at this point.
It would definitely be a very, very specific...
Guardiola to England or something, which seems like a pipe dream anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Klopp is the one, but he's not going to do it.
Ancelotti somewhere, but I know what you mean. There's fewer names that, as you say, would pop up here. I think it's a coup for the US to get him. I think they needed to make a statement after recent disappointments, going into the World Cup as I'm going to call them the big hosts, because they're the venues.
Disrespectful to Mexico.
No, it isn't, because
the all-time World Cup team.
it's not disressfectful because
Azteca.
And I've been there. Shithole. No, it was great. That's what Liam Gallagher said when he walked out of Wembley for the first time.
Yeah.
So they needed something big and something to get everybody going, and they've done it. And I think that Pochettino is a very likeable character, as we know. He's a good manager, despite not having won anything other than really at PSG. We know what he did at Spurs. Seems a long time ago now. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. I think this is a coup, and I get it totally. It's now, can he transform the fortunes of the team and give them a good showing? Because again, as big hosts, they're going to have to do something. In the US, the last World Cup in the US in '94, of course, people were worried, oh my goodness, are they going to go out in the first round? And of course, they did pretty well in a tough group, and they were only edged 1-0 by Brazil. They're going to have to do something with a bigger team. 48 teams are going to be there, for crying out loud. So there's a chance here. You would think that there are going to be games earlier on in the tournament, a side like the US can get the better of some of their opponents.
Yeah.
And you want to go in as a seeded team, you want to do that. I don't know how that would work, so let's leave that chat there. But I think Pochettino, I think it's a good one. And get the lemons right, for crying out loud.
This is what I was going to say. They've announced it too late, because the lemons take 2 years. Yeah. He says the lemons take 2 years. Oh, so September 2026 is no good to them at all.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he needs to base himself in California, because according to the US Department of Agriculture, California absolutely dominates lemon production. Over 51% of all American lemon crops is actually harvested in California, and the next biggest state is Arizona. It's way behind.
Maybe the volume of lemons then will kind of speed up the process.
I think he's thought this through, and also presumably he still lives there. He can bunk with Jurgen Klinsmann.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Get some pointers,
tips on what not to do.
All I'm saying is California delivers 800,000 tons of lemons every year. It's a lot of lemons. He's among friends.
He is very much so.
Thank you for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an upload. A single upload. Don't miss out on the uploads. The uploads are important.